Hey, what's up, everybody? You are now tuned in to Paging Dr. Chanda. I'm your host, licensed clinical psychologist, Dr. Chanda Reynolds, your favorite psychologist and dubbed the culture psychologist on TikTok. Here, we make psychology real, relatable, and practical by engaging in conversations with your favorite celebrities, artists, athletes, mental health professionals, and everyday people, y'all. So let's get into it. Today, we're diving into something that's been making waves in the mental health field. Mental health myths versus facts. There's so much misinformation out there about mental health and what it is and what it isn't. Did you know that according to the National Institute of Mental Health, about 1 in 5 adults in the US experiences mental illnesses each year? But despite how common it is, myths and misconceptions still make it harder for people to seek help. We hear terms like narcissist and gaslighting and trauma bonding thrown around all the time, y'all. I'm getting sick and tired of listening to it, honestly. But are we using them correctly? Are self-diagnoses helping or hurting us? We're about to break it all the way down with a guest that we have today who knows all about this stuff, so we can't wait to get into it. Stay tuned.
I am paging Dr. Chanda.
I am the Dr. Chanda.
And I'm a licensed clinical psychologist.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Paging Dr. Chanda podcast, all things related to the Black culture.
Revolt. You got the doctor in front of your name.
What's up, family? It is Dr. Chanda. Tune in for another episode of Paging Dr. Chanda. All you have to do is keep watching. But listen, if you're just watching from the outside, just peeking through the window, I need you to commit. Come all the way in the house, and I need you to subscribe, like, and shoot me a comment in the comment section. I love responding to all of your comments. I love listening and reading how much you guys enjoy the topics that I'm talking about. So yeah, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe, and join the tribe. Stop scrolling for 1 second. This month, we are bringing back the Psychology of Black Women, the online class brought to you by yours truly, Dr. Chanda, licensed clinical psychologist. Y'all, I've been getting so many questions about why anxiety and depression presents differently in Black women. What do we do about it? How can we start to combat this? And what are some of the reasonings behind it? Listen, if you are a Black woman who has questions about anxiety and depression, it's something you experience or something your loved ones experience, or if you're a professional who works with Black women who experience anxiety and depression, I promise you this class is for you. Make sure that you sign up today. Family, I am so excited to introduce today's guest, Dr. Uche. She is a licensed psychologist in Pennsylvania, a proud Georgia Bulldogs fan, and the co-founder of Talk Naija, a nonprofit dedicated to breaking the stigma of mental illness in the Nigerian community. Dr. Uche empowers individuals through therapy and helps organizations create trauma-informed workplaces. Dr. Uche, how are you today? Are you looking as good as you feel? Are you feeling as good as you look? Because
Ooh, don't gas me, because I am. I really am.
Period.
I'm feeling good. I'm happy to be here. I love being in spaces like this, especially with other Black women.
Yes,
so thank you.
yes. First of all, this dress, we're gonna have to, I don't know.
You know, I'm gonna have to do a little.
Might have to run you for
that
dress. No, but it looks great. You were telling me
Thank
this is
you.
Nigerian, by a Nigerian.
Yes,
yeah.
this is by a Nigerian designer.
Okay.
Her name is Yewande Lagos.
Yeah.
I bought it from Nigeria. She
Okay.
ships everywhere. One thing I realized this year was, like, I really wanted to be intentional about buying Black owned, especially like
Yes.
supporting designers across, like, you know, the diaspora.
Yes,
So, yeah.
yes, I'm here for that. I'm here for that. So, and the nails, I just keep the nail.
you.
Okay, all right. Can you tell us a bit about the work that you do? We're getting into myths and facts about mental health today, and I can't wait. But I want the people to learn a little bit about you.
Oh, yeah. So I am a licensed psychologist in Philadelphia. I am originally from Georgia. I'm also Nigerian American. And I originally moved up to Philly for a fellowship in child abuse and trauma.
Okay.
And so one of the things that's always been on my heart has been trauma work. I think that how we treat trauma in our society is not redemptive. It's not
Yes.
restorative. It's like,
Yes.
this is your identity, or this happened to you, get over it. And
Yeah.
so for me, it's been this journey of helping people to not only be able to process it, be able to look at it and say, like, but where do I want it to land in my life
Yeah.
now? And so I love doing that. I also have a nonprofit, Talk Naija, which is like my baby too, being able to just kind of break myths about mental health in the Nigerian community. A lot of stigma is there, and being able to also then fund people to go to therapy.
Yes, yes. Okay, not to jump too far into the topic, because I still got a whole script that I've got to go through, but Okay, expecting people to get over it, right, after they experience trauma. I think that's so common for Black women especially, because we're seen to be strong and always having to be resilient, have it all together. And like, what has been your experience with breaking that ideology in order to allow us to feel our trauma?
Yeah, so it's so interesting because, you know, a lot of times when you talk about trauma and people always want to use the word survivor, which I think the word survivor is great. But what I realized with working with Black women, it's actually getting them to use the word victim and not
say that, because that's something I experienced too. Okay, I'm not the only one. All right, go ahead.
No, exactly that. Because we're always taught to persevere, right? And so the idea that I could be a victim, also, you know, a lot of times Black women are forced to grow up faster, and so then we are sexualized at a very young age, and so the things that happen to us, we're almost told like, well, you were a participant in it a little bit, and so getting Black women to get to this place where I was like, no, I was victimized. Like, I'm not always going to be a victim, but that actually did happen to me, and helping them. And I find that becomes like one of the integral things for them to do is to say like, yes, I was harmed and it wasn't okay.
Yes. I find it is so difficult for Black women to identify, because it's like we wear that being strong as a badge of honor. So if somebody says I was a victim of something, well, I'm not a victim.
Yeah,
like, don't put that on me.
I got over it already. I'm good.
Yes. Such a stigma associated with that word.
Exactly. And it's like it doesn't free us, right?
Yeah.
It really just kind of keeps us in bondage.
Yes, for sure. That's why I love the work that you're doing. I love the fact that, you know, you're a Black woman doing this. You look great while you're doing it.
Thank you.
Period. But let's get into the myths and facts of mental health. So there are some common terms that we often hear up and down these social media streets. What are some terms that you've heard?
You know, we have gaslighting is a big one. A lot of times we talk about a lot of personality disorders. We say narcissist or you're narcissistic. I think a lot of times, like, even naming things like, oh, you must have PTSD. And it's like, just because you go through trauma does not mean you're going to develop PTSD.
Come on.
That is one of those myths too.
That part. Okay, let's start at the top. Gaslighting, right? Again, like one of those things that we often see people, oh, you're gaslighting me. When in fact, they're, you know, we'll get into it. But how would you define that to people so that they can have an understanding of what it is and what it isn't?
Yeah, so gaslighting is a repeated emotional manipulation. And so there's an intentionality to that, because it's to cause you to question your reality, so then you bend to their will. So there's a reasoning behind it. And I think about it as like, you know, when people are like, oh, well, no, that really didn't happen. We all kind of do that, where we're like, I thought it was like this. I thought it was like this. But that's also because, you know, my memory is really trash sometimes too. But when we think about like, what does gaslighting look like? It is that emotional manipulation that's involved in questioning your reality so that this other person can get what they want out of you.
Yeah, okay. What would that look like in relationships? If someone were being gaslit in a relationship, is it just this person's disagreeing with me, therefore they're gaslighting me? Like, what does it look like in that dynamic?
So I think about it, let's say that, you know, you and your partner were out to dinner and you clearly saw your partner like looking someone up and down and, you know, all of that. And you're like, this makes me feel uncomfortable. And so you bring it up and say like, hey, I didn't like that. And it was like, what do you mean? Like, I didn't even do anything like that. There's nothing wrong with this, right? And so, and you've expressed it. I'm like, no, I don't like, and we've already talked about, I don't like when you do X, Y, and Z. And then they do it. And then they're like, well, you're making a big deal out of something that's not really there. All I did was glance. And even though you know for yourself, no, this man was like staring and doing everything else. But it's that idea of like what you're doing, like, or what you saw, like, isn't right.
Yes. Okay. And so I think that clarifies it up for the people. So the next time y'all say somebody is gaslighting you, make sure that you have the definition that Dr. Uche provided, because it isn't necessarily just someone disagreeing or you're being upset or mean or whatever. Like, it's intentionality behind it. Okay. All right. I've been hearing a lot lately, Black people are being gaslit right now in the political climate. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Yeah. In what ways?
I think the idea of like, one, that racism doesn't exist.
Come on.
I think that's
that part.
That one to me really blows my mind. Where it's like, oh no, that didn't really happen. And we're seeing things happen in real time, and we're told to not trust ourselves. And I think that's a big portion of like gaslighting too. It's like, no, but I'm actually seeing this.
This is my experience.
Like things like them removing the refugee status that just happened happened recently where they took away all the contracts, and it said like, oh, so people are in limbo who were supposed to be landing like today, tomorrow, whatever.
Wow.
They're not. And it's like, oh no, but we're not trying to get rid of immigrants. We actually care for refugees. But then all the behaviors you're doing are showing that you actually don't care for them.
Yes.
With Black people too, in America, where it's thinking about like, oh, affirmative action, you know, where we just really want merit-based, but you don't really want merit-based because Black people are really kind of excellent. We really are killing it in everything.
The highest educated
The
group,
highest
Black
educated,
women.
okay,
Come
period. And even in that, you're saying, oh no, this is the other reason why you didn't get in. Not, I actually don't want you here.
Yes, yes. So political gaslighting is definitely a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. And in some of your work, being a person who's, you know, studied trauma and you work with Black women with trauma, I wanted to get into the term of trauma bonding, because that's another one of those buzzwords that we see up and down the TikTok and Instagram streets or what have you. And so based on your knowledge as a psychologist in this area, how would you define trauma bonding? Like, what is it versus what it is not?
What we've looked at with trauma bonding is actually more so like how you have bonded with the person who has abused or traumatized you versus just like, okay, I am sharing my trauma with somebody, and then maybe we relate on certain things too. And so I think like people are maybe getting a little bit mixed up there, where it's like, oh, like maybe the only reason why we're relating is because of this trauma, and so now we're trauma bonded. And I think the word bond, I'm always careful in using that word because, you know, I think about like Gorilla Glue, right? We're thinking like bonded, we're stuck together. There's nothing that's going to tear us apart. And it's not necessarily that. It's more so that I'm actually seeking some type of intimacy with someone who understands my story. And so then we get connected in that type of way. But there can be a point where you start to go overboard, where it's like, oh, we don't actually have anything else outside of the fact that we both, you know, experience trauma. And so that's where kind of that idea of like, are we trauma bonded? But I would say that I use it more in terms of thinking of like, are there things like that we are more connected to because of the traumas that we've experienced?
Yeah. So, okay. So it's a lot deeper than just connecting with somebody just because y'all went through something. It's like outside of the trauma, then what else? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's more so. And it's more of like, once again, goes back to like that intentionality of like, what am I trying to get from this?
Okay. So amazing job with defining those things for us, getting the people more aware of ways to use those words and ways not to use those words. Are there any words that I'm missing, Doc? Like anything that you might hear or may have heard in social media streets that, you know, we often misuse? Did we do narcissism
No,
yet?
we didn't do narcissism yet.
Okay.
That's the big one. That's the big one.
Okay, let's dig into that one.
Yeah, narcissism is a huge one that we hear.
Come on.
And there is a difference between like having narcissistic personality disorder, having narcissistic traits, and engaging in narcissistic behavior. You know, what everyone probably doesn't want to know is that we've all probably engaged in a behavior that could objectively be seen as narcissistic, right? This idea of like, you know, I want to get what I want, no matter if it's at the harm of somebody else. And so, but it doesn't mean that I'm like intentionally always trying to hurt you because I'm putting like kind of my desires above yours. But like when we think about narcissism, and, you know, there becomes a big debate because people are like, you know, well, you mental health professionals, you're saying that, you know, there's only a small population, but I've experienced, and I don't think that we're ever trying to like discredit it at all. And it is true that it's probably underdiagnosed because most people who would fit criteria for narcissism are not going to probably come to therapy because they don't see it as an issue for them because they're still gaining what they would like. But it's thinking of like, I want these type of accolades. I want everything for myself, no matter if it is at the expense of somebody else.
Yes. Okay. So what I'm hearing is like, we can all have traits of narcissism. I think we all have an ego, right? Like we all have things that we desire, the things that we want. But what allows us to like not tip over is like having compassion or having an idea of like, how does my behavior impact somebody else? And that's what people who have narcissism, they don't have it. I remember like learning even in grad school, like it was a part of our upbringing, our rearing to like have some level of healthy narcissism. So that's why it really grinds my gears when people just, you know, diagnose everybody with it and just on social media calling everybody a narcissist. Like it's really trash, Doc.
Yeah.
So that's why we appreciate you for coming and clearing up for
Of
the
course,
people.
of course. Yeah, no, I love it too, because I think it does, in some ways, it can then, if you have truly experienced it too, then some people start to feel cautious about, like, should I say it? Because everybody's just going to throw me in, like, oh, you're just calling it, you don't want to believe me.
Yeah.
And so I think it's damaging in that way too.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, next one. How about OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder? So I hear a lot of people like, oh, I like to clean, I have OCD, right? I just gotta have everything in order, I have OCD. Can you explain to the people like what it is versus what it isn't?
Yeah, so first of all, you are bringing up I'm like, ooh, let me go back into this textbook, let me remember all the things. But when we think about OCD, it's the repetition of different behaviors. So there's the obsessive component, but then there's also the compulsive component. So the obsessions can be kind of like those thinking patterns where it's just like, I can't get out of this loop, and it's like looping and looping and looping and looping. And then the compulsions are your ways to try to get out of the obsessions. And so if it's like, I'm unclean, I'm unclean, I'm unclean, and so the only way for me to be clean is for me to shower at this temperature for 5 times straight. And so you do that because you're trying to also like kind of calm that type of reaction in your body. And so you kind of go to it. A lot of times people say I'm OCD because you like things clean.
Yeah.
You're a clean person.
Right,
like, that's a great thing.
Yeah,
like, I hope
exactly.
you're clean.
Right.
But are you getting to the place where you're like, everything has to be in this specific order, and if it isn't, I get stuck and my day gets thrown off. And so when you're thinking about like, okay, my brain functionings, it's really just narrowing down on that, and I can't move past it. It's almost thinking about like, I get stuck here.
Yeah. So beautiful way of explaining that. I think that clarifies it. What would you say are some of the dangers of us continuing to misuse some of these terms, like, oh, I'm OCD, I like stuff clean, or you know, my ex is a narcissist. Like, what are some of the dangers of that?
I think one, it can ostracize people who are experiencing it. It can quiet people, but then also it can prevent you from actually getting to the root of whatever is going on within yourself. Because if it's like, oh, it's just all these things, and maybe that's not actually the truth, but focusing on that or making it kind of like this flippant thing, it can help you to avoid what are you probably actually needing to work on and work through.
Yeah. So it kind of like takes away one's sense of like their willingness to seek help.
Yes. Yeah. So too. And then I think too, it's also like it can potentially take away like your belief that things can change. Because sometimes we see these behaviors and then we incorporate them and say it's our identity. And it's a lot harder to change things that you believe are your identity versus things that are behaviors or experiences.
Say that again.
So it's a lot harder to change your identity instead of just changing your behaviors. And so when we get to this place where it's just like, oh, that's just who I am, then you're like, oh, I'm setting it, right? Instead of you're like, no, I struggle with this. Like, this is something that keeps coming up for me. It gives you more of that agency, that choice, that power to feel like this can actually be different.
Wow. You were teaching the people. I feel like I'm in a webinar right now.
Yeah, I'm trying to catch up.
No, but okay. So when thinking about all these different trends in the social media streets or what have you, another trend that I'm seeing is like the idea of self-diagnosis, right? And diagnosing yourself with, you know, I have depression, I'm bipolar, like all these things that we kind of see on the internet. I do think there could be some value in it, but I also think it could be damaging. So what's your perspective as a clinician? Like,
I feel the same way kind of that you feel, because I think if we think about the history of mental health, and then we think about the history of the field of psychology, it is also a field where there was racism there too. So, you know, we're going to talk about it. I'm always black people first, black women first.
Come on, let's do it.
And so we're going to talk about it in that type of way. And so there were so many barriers put into place for black people to receive treatment, or also that a lot of mental health, when you're looking at the research, you know, it was used as a way to subjugate black people. And so then to keep you from even understanding or knowing yourself a bit more. And so it was harder for you to even seek treatment, to get a diagnosis. And so I understand like thinking for yourself, okay, like if there are all these barriers, but I know that there's something that just doesn't feel right within me, like let me research it more. And so I like to think about it from like, what if I look at it just like researching more, right? And then after I get my research, let me bring it to somebody. But I think that, you know, a lot of black people have experiences of being dismissed too. And so if you're like, you're spending so many times and you're being told, oh, the doctor knows, and you're like, but I don't feel right. And then you get to this point where you're just like, okay, I give up. And so I think there can be healthy like self-diagnosis in that in terms of research, but I also do think there can be some unhealthy where we are starting to put normal human traits and then pathologizing it. And I think there's a big problem with that.
That part, pathologizing human behaviors, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what got us into this loop of, calling an ex somebody who you fell out with like a narcissist, right? So again, everybody's not a pleasant person. People are just rude, like you ignorant.
Exactly.
It don't
You
mean
have
you're
a bad day.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And that's the thing too. It's like if I'm having a bad day and that was your only time meeting me, and then you created this whole idea of like who I am, my identity, and I never even. It's just like, well, that's who she is. It's like, no, maybe I just I didn't eat. I'm not a pleasant person when I eat, so I'm not. And I think there is an issue with that where it's like, no, we're humans. Humans are deeply flawed, but we're also beautiful, and so we don't have to put all these things and say like, oh, nope, it's a diagnosis, you need help.
How do we get back to the place of humanizing people so that we're not pathologizing everything?
I think we have to delve into community. I think especially since the pandemic, a lot of things that we talk about now, there's a lot of isolation still. And so it's easy to pathologize people that you don't know. But it's a lot harder when you start to know somebody, you start to get closer with people and you start to see them and you're like, oh, I see the nuances within you. And so it humanizes you and it draws you into them more. And so I think a big part of that is like we kind of have this isolation pandemic and we have to kind of fight that too.
Absolutely. And, getting to that place of community, I think that's where, we can humanize, but also that's where a lot of our healing comes from too, especially of Black people, of the African diaspora. Like when we get into that healing circle, when we get into community, then we can start to, glean from others. We can start to, again, humanize. We can start to learn better ways of coping, better ways of dealing with things so that we're not in that isolative space that we've been in.
Exactly. I think community is so important in that aspect that you can't, a lot of times, and maybe this is another popular thing where it's like, I'm a low maintenance friend. And I might be hitting some people right now. Sorry. But the idea of like, okay, I'm a low maintenance friend, so I don't really need to. And I always like ask people the question, like, what does that mean? And have you created the currency to be a low maintenance friend? Because if you haven't, then you're just a dismissive, ignoring friend.
Oh, wait. You just stepped on some toes. Sorry. Wait, say that again. So wait, are you actually low maintenance?
Are you actually low maintenance, or you don't give effort? Do you not care? Do you not connect with people? Because we all have periods in our life where it's like, I'm not going to be able to be 100%, right? But because of the relationship I've had with you, who I've shown up to be, I've gotten that currency to be like, all right, I know she's good. Like, she's gonna come back around, right? Versus if you've always been low effort, low connection, low, I don't know.
Right. Okay. Well, and that goes back to us needing to get back to community too.
Exactly.
You just kind of blew my mind with that one. Like, are you low maintenance or are you actually dismissive? Wow. Okay. Well, that's a lot to ponder on.
Try to get a little,
That's a lot to ponder on. Okay. So tell us more about your work that you have coming up, some things that we should be aware of.
So one of the things that I do also just like in my private practice is I do a group for first daughters called the Ada group. So in the Igbo language, Ada is, it means the first daughter. And so I just started my most recent cohort. But what I realized was I was seeing a lot of first daughters in therapy, a lot of with the same issues like anxiety, struggling with creating boundaries, things like that. And so I decided, okay, what if I came up with a group where people could, going back to community, not feel alone, also being able to delve into each other and learn different skills to create boundaries, to feel like they can be a little bit more free. And so that's something that I've been doing the last few years, which I love. And I don't know, it just brings me so much joy to be able to do that and to also give back to women who have been in that position of always sacrificing for other people. And so I've been doing that, and I let people also like donate to that. And I think that's the other community aspect, is that people then donate for like women to get to the group and not have to pay or have it at a subsidized cost, which I really love. And then for Talk Naija, we are going to start doing some more education pods and partnering with some other groups too. And then we also do our Talk Naija Therapy Fund, which once again is funded by so many people in the community. And we offer people to go to therapy for 8 sessions for up to $120 per session. And so we realize that finances are usually a barrier for people to getting help. And so we think, okay, how can we actually help people to get there?
Yeah. It's such a barrier, especially for us, like Black women. One of the main things that I hear people when they say they want to start therapy but they can't, it's usually a financial thing.
100%. It's hard because I think, on the clinician side of it too, right? When you're thinking like, okay, what, charging people, what does this look like? But also wanting to take care of yourself well so you don't burn out, but then also making sure that people have resources. And so I love when there are organizations that step in to help people to go to therapy.
Okay. How can we follow you? What are some things?
So you can follow me on Instagram, Dr. Ukuku, so DRUKUKU.
Okay.
And then you can also follow talkniger.org on Instagram too. And then my website is drukuku.com.
Love that. So if you can leave us on one note, what is one piece of advice? You just talked about first daughters. What's one piece of advice you can give to first daughters?
That you are worthy not because of what you do, but because of who you are, and that your identity doesn't have to be only surrounded on giving to other people, that you also need and deserve to be given to.
Period. Listen, finger snaps for that one. Finger snaps, because it's a lot of first daughters. I get a lot of Black women listening to the show, so it's a lot of first daughters who needed to hear that. I love that you're doing that group too. I haven't heard of a group specifically for first daughters, so that's amazing. Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Uche, for joining the show
Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. You can come back anytime.
Like this couch, I will come back. You are an amazing host
thank
too.
You.
So thank you so much for what you do.
Yes, I appreciate that. Make sure that y'all stay tuned with Dr. Uche, everything she's doing, and make sure that you guys focus on or follow her on all social medias, Dr. Uche. Is that, you said your social medias, right?
Yeah, Dr. Ukuku.
Dr. Ukuku, okay. All right, so make sure that you guys follow her. Today's conversation was powerful. I hope you guys took something from it. We busted some myths, clarified some facts, and hopefully helped y'all to feel more confident in understanding mental health. Just remember, having knowledge is power, but applying that knowledge is where real change happens. Thank you so much again, Dr. Ukuku, for coming through.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And make sure y'all tune in next week. And don't forget, you have the power to create the emotions that you want to experience. God bless.